Okay, so we're going to be doing our final video this week about making reusable straps. I'm going to keep this short and sweet just so you guys can get through all the content, because I know I've added a ton this week, but I think this definitely warrants one just because I've been using it so much personally. I've hidden the straps right now, but as you guys can see, I have a ton of straps on my character, and you guys saw in the time-lapse video as well, so let me show you guys how I approach that quickly. Now, in the straps folder, I'm just going to turn that off, and we're going to create that again essentially. So with the way, let me delete this. So let's pretend like we have a fresh scene without straps anyway, and I got rid of that star just so I could create again and explain why. But inside of ZBrush, if you want to add straps or add topology or drag and drop curves onto an object, it can't have subdivisions. So to do this, what I prefer to do is just insert a new object. So let's go down here. I'll just go and insert, and then I'll just insert a star, for example, right? And if I press shift and click that, I'll drag it to the top of my scene. So I'll keep this and I'll just scale it down so we can't see it, nowhere to be seen. And then I'll use this to draw curves around things that I need. So for example, if I need a strap around here, which I do, I'm just going to go B, C, and we're looking for curved tubes or curved strap, and we are going to draw this around our character. So let's say I needed a strap that ran from here, it's gonna go under here, but that's fine, there to around here. Now, annoying thing is it went under here, so I'm just gonna draw that again. So let's say we need a strap that ran around here, right? Let me just keep this going. Okay, so we have a strap. Now, this isn't the actual final strap we're going to use. We're going to go and create that strap now. And when I create these straps, I mentioned before, I think, but let me do again. In stroke, in curve, I turn on elastic because I prefer working with elastic. This way I can go in and manipulate things without moving the entire strap, which we could have done by locking the start and end position, but I prefer this way of working. So I'm going to select here and then press shift and just hover over this, and you can see that now it's smoothing everything out. There's just tons of cool workflow benefits to using elastic. So let's say this is our strap, right? Now with this strap, what I would firstly do is, let me drag this out, I would lock down where all of the straps should be, and then I would go in and delete pieces of geometry I don't need. So for example, this strap's locked down. This is our strap now. And pieces of geometry that I don't need the bottom edge or these triangles. So you'll see I'm just going to go in and delete it. I'm going to switch from mask rectangle to mask lasso. Reason being, if we control shift click on a loop, we can just get that whole loop. So you'll see in 2 clicks I've selected that entire loop. I'm just going to go ahead and get the edges. Okay, and now I'm just going to go to delete hidden, right? And I don't mind if I delete that star as well because I don't need it. It was just there so I could use it. So ideally what I'll do is move this into a folder, organize it, but I'm just going to leave it outside for now. So currently we have our strap, well, what's representing our strap anyway. And we could use just this geometry, which we'll use a little bit. Give me 1 second. I forgot this part. Okay, so delete hidden. So we'll use this piece of geometry. Actually no, scratch that, we won't. So we have that piece of geometry, and we're going to leave it there for now. So I'm going to jump into a new scene, and in this scene we're going to create our reusable strap. So we have this random object here. We don't need that object. All I want is a cube. So on initialize, on this random object, on any random object, you'll see this initialize, I can generate a Q cube. Now the reason why we generate a Q cube instead of just generating a cube here, which I think that they have Q cubes here anyway, is the Q cube has just nice topology, right? Now let me just reference this quickly. So let's try this. So we have cube 3D, Yeah, we just have Cube 3D in here. So with the Cube 3D, you can see that the poles are all at the top. The geometry isn't nice, especially to use the Z modeler brush on. So that's why I don't use this. But we could have generated this and again went to initialize. No, the initialize on this will not give us what we want because this isn't a normal object yet, right? So if I press make polymesh 3D, then go down to initialize, I can now generate a Q cube and replace that object. So that's just if you guys want to create it that way, but you can see why I just clicked on something and generated a Q cube because it's quicker, right? So now that we have this object, I'm going to use this to generate our curve. Initially, what I'm going to do is just drag this down, and this is going to be our strap, sorry. And I'm going to keep the wireframe on, so you can just either hit the wireframe button here or press Shift F for wireframe. So now this is going to be our strap. Now what I'm going to do is I want the strap to puff up around the edges, you know, like straps do, they have some thickness to them. So we're going to generate that now, and then we'll do everything else as we go. And I'm going to keep these edges on for now. So one thing we want to do is turn on symmetry. Need to make sure we're working with that, and make sure the symmetry is along the length so that we can just add details along the length of this. And I'm just going to do this quickly. So we're going to go into Z modeler. And now I'm going to begin inserting edges. So I'm going to insert these edges. So this edge is just how wide I want that trim to be, or how wide I want that edge to be, right? And then I'm going to insert one next to it and one in the middle. With this one in the middle, what we're going to do is go to QMesh, and then you can see now with QMesh we have different options, right? I'm going to go to complete. In terms of edge loop complete, so we can select this entire edge loop, this entire edge loop, and get the geometry going out. While I have this edge loop selected, if I press Control, you can see it just extrudes all of that edge out and pushes it all out evenly. So I'm just going to push all of that edge out, and then I'm going to do the same thing here, but instead of pushing it out, I'm going to push this other edge that we had in ever so slightly, and then I'm going to press D. Now we get this message, do we want to turn on dynamic subdivision? I'm going to click always yes, just so it's easy and I can use it. And then I'm going to press Shift F. So I'm just previewing how this is looking. And for my strap, for now this is looking fine. Okay, so we'll work with this. And what I'm going to do is, because you can see that as we go on, these edges are puffing up more so. I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to insert an edge loop. So insert edge loop right at the end, and same thing for this end as well. This is just going to help support that, and you can see now that it just keeps it a lot firmer at the end. So to be fair, let me have a look at this. So for demoing this to you guys, you can see my one, it's not that it's more detailed, I just spent more time on the shape. So if you guys really wanted to spend more time on this shape, something I would do is, while you're in the Z modeler mode, you can press Alt and then click on faces. So while holding Alt, you can just click and hover over faces that you want to select. And now if I do a cube mesh operation, even though I have it set to a single poly, it's going to affect all of those polys that I've pressed. So I'm just going to bring this up ever so slightly, right? And then when I press D, oops, Control Z. So I'm also going to include these polys right at the edge that I've created. And now I'm just going to do that same operation again, bring that up. And then I'm going to press D, Shift F. And now you can see that there's another nice lip here, Shift D. So I'm just going to keep on working this shape basically a little bit. I'm not going to spend too long on it. But I just want to show you guys something that looks decent rather than give you a bad example. And let's just do the same thing. So insert edges, Q mesh. Now hold Shift to drag that entire edge out. Same thing here. Oops, select that edge. Hold Shift to drag that entire edge out. D, Shift F. So you can see now that's more rounded, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Oops. Hold Shift, drag that out. You can see that we don't need to actually go into our other view, we can just preview all here. I just like seeing the geometry as well. And this is fine, so we'll use this for what we're doing. So let's press Shift D. Now the next thing I want to do is, I want to insert some edge loops. So that's just so this shape's more supported. So I'm going to go to insert, and this time multiple edge loops, right? And then I'm going to insert a few. Now, one thing, I just press Control Z. Before I do that, I'm going to change this so we get the keep polygroups, because I don't want it to define polygroups for me. Not right now anyway. And I'm just going to insert a few there, insert a few here, and we could actually add a symmetrical point. So another thing I want to mention is, instead of just doing symmetry on the x-axis, we could also go to transform and do symmetry along the z-axis. This means that you can see if I do something here, it also does it on the z-axis side, so negative z as well, which is convenient. One thing before we continue with that though, because we can break symmetry fairly easily doing that, right? Because we inserted an edge at the edge here, we inserted an edge at the end here and here, but they're at roughly different positions because I did it by hand. So I just want to mirror this along X and Z, just so we know everything's fully symmetrical, and I'm going to turn off Z so that doesn't confuse me later down the line. So now that we know we have symmetry there, at these edges I just want them to be nicely curved. So I'm going to insert multiple edge loops at the edge here, right? So I have tons of loops to work with there, and then I'm going to select these and Control tap on this mesh, Control tap on the empty space to invert that selection, Control tap on the mesh again, and then I'm just going to go to the gizmo mode by pressing W, holding Control and clicking and dragging on the screen, and then I'm just going to rotate these. So nothing complicated. And now I'm going to press D, Shift F, so you can see these edges, they are now rotated and they're just going down. I'm doing this in a quick way for now, but that's cool. So I'm going to change this from mask pen to mask lasso again, and I'm going to do the same thing, just roughly lining these up. So masking that off, Control clicking, soften that mask, and then I'm just going to pull this down and around. So you can see now that's folding underneath nicely, and it's those extra edges that we added that's supporting this. I'm just going to go in with the move brush and move this. And this isn't something that I always do. This is just based on the reference that I have. The edges, some of the edges were just nicely curved around, so I just decided to add it. So now we have this working in the sense of we have the curve and we have everything there that we need. So now what do I need for my tripart brush? I'm going to press X to get rid of the symmetry, and I need 3 separate polygroups on this mesh. So I'm just going to press Control W before masking anything to polygroup all of this right now as is, and then I'm going to press Control, select the upper third, so you can see that's one polygroup, this is another. And then again, I'm going to try and keep this even. So the center is here, and this is 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm just going to press Control, mask off that area. One more down, Control W. So now we have even groups, right? And we have 3 separate groups. So let me go and press, well, I'll keep Shift F on. And this is going to be our shape. So this is going to be our rope. The next step is, if I press, you need to rotate to the top view of this object, because when we create this brush, it depends on what view you're in essentially. So rotate so you're facing down, so when we draw this object out, it's drawing from the top down. And I'm going to press B, and then I'm just going to press Create Insert Mesh. Create Insert Mesh, we're going to create a new one. So now this is going to be our brush. Ideally, rename this before you create the brush. For example, I can just rename this. Let me go down here. Let's go to rename, and I'll name this strap underscore 01. Press OK. And now if I press B and go and create insert mesh, while I'm on the new brush that I just created, I can press append, press OK, and now that adds this. So it's appending it to the brush I just created. And I can always go in here, go on brush, go in here, go on brush, go on modifiers, or no, create, and then delete mesh. So I can always delete that initial mesh I created. But that's not the important part. Now we can go to any object, and I'm just going to demonstrate this on this curve, right? And then if I go to brush, I can start creating our curve brush. So initially, what I want to do is go to stroke and turn on curve mode. Now, I can do this in any order, but I just want to show you guys in a logical order. Now, when I turn on curve mode, we get this curve, and you can see that this object gets drawn out a bunch of times. Now, because I have that, because I grouped this object into 3 parts, it's already recognizing that this is a tri-part brush. So it's already separated this mesh up. So I'm just going to press Ctrl Z. And now inside of brush, inside of modifiers, we need to change some settings. So we need to go on world points and stretch. And I just have stretch on for a safety option, essentially. And you can see now, if I go down, this is a brush. So the middle part gets duplicated, and then the end parts get put on the end. So if I press Shift F, you can see that this is just a normal curve, and when I press D to preview this, you can see that this is looking good. I'm actually going to turn off stretch, because stretch is annoying. So brush, stretch. The stretch function was just filling in certain gaps and adding topology where it didn't need to be. Shift F, and now when I press D, you can see works perfectly fine for a curve. So the next step is combining these two things, right? Now, with this strap that we have, I want to make it, so let's imagine this was multiple straps. I want to have an easy way of getting geometry on all of these straps without any hassle. So there's a few ways. When you have a curve brush, you can start drawing your curve, and if you press Shift, it snaps to an edge, essentially. So we could strap it there, but obviously we want our curve to be in the middle. This is where inserting a new edge loop comes in. So I can go and insert multiple edge loops. So right now I'm going to the Z modeler brush, just so you guys know, and on edges, I'm on insert and I'm on multiple edges. I'm on multiple edges even though I need one, because remember, when we're on multiple edges, if we add one edge, it goes straight into the middle. So now that I'm in the middle, I can press B and go back to my new curve brush. And I just want to show you guys this, because you may assume that you can draw along this curve and press Shift and then it will go there, but it won't. This is why we need to do the next step of creasing this curve. So if we hover over this edge and then press space, we can go to the crease brush, and then I'm just going to go on edge loop complete and crease this edge loop. And now if we go back to our curve brush, we can actually do this 2 ways. So initially we can draw along this crease curve and then press Shift, and you can see now it's just drawing along that. The other way, so if we have tons of different straps, so I'm just going to create another strap. If we have more than one strap and we want to do this for all of them at one time, what we can do is go to stroke, close curve, and then go on curve functions, and then we can just leave crease edge on. So I'm just going to turn off poly groups and borders and go on frame mesh. So now we've done that. If I just tap on this mesh, you can see it's drawn on all of these, right? It's drawn on both of them. So that's another easy way of doing things. Now you can see that this strap is very small. Well, if we go and we change our brush size and then tap on this mesh again, it gets bigger. So let's say we're happy with this. I'm just going to turn off the wireframe, Shift F. And now what we can do is select our straps, essentially. So by the way, when you want to get rid of these curves, so we can always go back, and if I'm on any type of curve brush, I can always go back and edit where these are placed, right? But let's say we're fully finished with this, we don't want to edit it anymore, and we're happy with the geometry. Well, next step is I'm going to actually auto groups these. So I'm going to go down to poly groups, auto group, and then I'm going to also tap on a random space on a mesh. That gets rid of the curve. And then I'm going to press Control Shift. I'm going to change back to the selection rectangle so I don't select edges by accident. Control Shift, select on these points. So I just selected that one. I just want to also make sure you guys know. So I just Control Shift selected this one to solo this tool. So only this mesh is selected. Control, click, Control Shift, click and drag on an empty space, and then I'm going to Control Shift click on the other mesh, right? So now both of those are hidden. We're going to go on split hidden. Now that mesh is going to be underneath this mesh. We're just going to turn that one off, turn off solo. And now we have our straps. If I press D, we can preview this mesh. If everything's okay, then we can use this mesh, right? And now we're all good to go. So that's how I create straps essentially. The other thing about this brush is that instead of doing that, we could just literally draw on our geometry. So there's tons of ways to go about this. I just like using the curves because initially at the block out stage we don't have our straps, so we need something. So that's just my workflow for creating straps, and hopefully that helps you guys. I just want to check one thing before going. Okay, yep, so hopefully that helps you guys, and that's how to create straps for your scene. And you can create multiple straps. Final thing, to save this brush, you can go to brush, save as, and then I would recommend saving this in your, so remember we have our project file, then we have our dark elf project, and we have all these folders. I'd recommend, actually scratch that, I'd recommend saving this inside of ZBrush and just creating a folder called brush and then having it there. So I already have my brush there, so cancel. And that's the final thing, so I hope that helps. Good luck.